fights with passion, and he inspires.
Are you ready for a war?
All right, welcome back to From 8 Arbitration, the Monday edition. I was doing an episode Sunday. My stuff screwed up, had to call Cole, and so he helped me out. So it got so late, I was like, hell, I'm just going to do a Monday edition. All right, so here's the Monday edition. What I'm going to do is I got a lot of stuff I'm going to have to clean up. So kind of not like a Salted Peanuts episode, but kind of like a Salted Peanuts episode. A lot of stuff I got to get off my phone, a lot of screenshots people have sent me. I've been doing the 6-day count stuff, and then obviously last week went off a little bit, and so I'm going to do that. So this one's not going to be very long. I will come back tomorrow, Tuesday, and I'll do an hour of the 6-day count, all right? And so that way this one won't be 2 hours long. This ain't going to be long at all, but I've got to get some stuff out there and cleaned up off my phone. First off, my Titan email. If you've emailed me on from8arbitration.com, and it says that I've blocked you, I've not blocked you. I don't know what's going on with that. Mallory's called me about it, and I'm not getting any notifications that I have any emails whatsoever. I used to get those a while back. I'm not getting any notifications that I'm getting any emails off of that Titan email, which is the from8arbitration.com. So I get on there, it's full. And the only reason I know that is because somebody put on Facebook that I blocked him. I don't even know how to block an email. And so I said, show me. And so it showed me what it was is that the email is full, so it's sending them a message that they've been blocked, which is not the case. I wouldn't block anybody on email. I don't know how to, first off. But so what I'm going to do is the rest of this week, I'm going to answer all those emails. There's several hundred. And so if you get a response from me where you've emailed me 6 months ago, just know that I apologize. I'm just now seeing it. My other email that I use, when I get those, I answer them right away. People message me, they text me, they call me, and we handle business like that. If you've done a Titan email from 8arbitration.com and I hadn't gotten back to you, it's not because I'm an asshole. It's just because I had no idea that they were coming in. Like I said, I used to get notifications. Now I don't. And so, but I'll answer those the rest of this week. Okay, so it'll take a while. It's a bunch of them. So, but I'll be doing that because anytime somebody messages me, I want to make sure that I get back to them, okay? Had somebody reach out about doing an episode a month for CCA. It's going to call the CCA Corner. And I said, yes, we'll do that. I think that the CCAs are critical to this next election. I do. That's the reason I tell them that they need to start their own movement and vote for people who haven't forgotten about them. I think that the current administration has forgotten about you. Anybody that listened last week knows how I feel about that. A CCA is a city letter carrier. Paying dues member is a union brother and sister. That's how I feel. I don't care if they've been here one day. If they're paying dues, then they're brothers and sisters of ours. And we will not disrespect them like they've been disrespected. They're part of our family. That's when I tell them when they come into my station, whoever it is, I'll give a stand up and I'll say, this is so-and-so. They're now part of our family because they're at our station. It's no different. It's no different nationally. If the CCA is paying dues money, they're a brother and sister, and they needed to be treated with that same respect. And so we've completely disrespected them under this administration. The CLC will not. I will not. And so somebody reached out to me and said, hey, I'm going to take you up on that, doing an episode for CCAs. I said, come on. So once a month, it's going to be separate from what I do here. I'm going to keep doing mine every Sunday, except for like today when my stuff screws up. But once a month, they'll have a CCA corner. He's going to come in. He's a CCA. He's going to talk about things that are important to CCAs. And I said, have at it, man. Absolutely. Because I love the CCA. And if y'all listened to me any length of time, you understand how I feel about the CCA position and those poor carriers that are getting flat screwed over by both sides. So anyway, look forward to that. CCA Corner, all right? A couple more podcasts I'm going to talk about. Now, look, what I'm going to do is if y'all send me your if y'all are doing a podcast, and you send me the link to it, I'll have Mallory put that up on from8arbitration.com. And so y'all can go on to from8arbitration.com, and all the podcasts will be on there. Y'all can click on them and learn. I don't think there can be such a thing as too much learning. I just don't. And this is something I didn't have when I first started out, and I wish I did. There's a lot of great educational podcasts out there. Mine started out that way, and then it's turned. Because I can't stand my union right now. I hate them, and what they're doing to the city letter carrier and their failures as far as that's concerned. So it pisses me off, and I'm going to talk about it because I can. But Richie Ray, Hot House. If y'all get on what I think is on Spotify or whatever, look up Hot House with Richie Ray. And if y'all have heard me talk about him, you know how I feel about that guy. He does a great job educating, has some great topics on his. So get on there and look up Hot House with Richie Ray. To me, I think that if you was to take a union member, just the NELC, what it's supposed to be, what it embodies, not what it is now, it's a frat house now of incompetence. But if you take what the NELC is supposed to be and you squeeze that out into a glass, what you'll have in that glass is the essence of the NELC. That's Richie Ray, to me. He is the essence of what the NELC is supposed to be about. And his passion for the city letter carrier is unequaled. That's how I feel. Anytime, if anybody knows this guy, you know what I'm talking about. So Hot House with Richie Ray. Plus he's got a great accent. You know, that Brooklyn accent. I wish I had an accent, but I don't. I'm just a southern guy down here from Nashville, Tennessee. But I wish I had an accent like that. And a lot more people listen to me. But it's Richie Ray, Hot House with Richie Ray. Also, Tallest Nail, the Tallest Nail podcast. Look that one up. If on Spotify, I believe it is. But the Tallest Nail, another individual who does great work as far as educating. Now, he's talking a little bit about the contract as well. Tallest Nail. The Tallest Nail is what it's called. Get on, listen to that one. I heard that it was really good as well. So get on there and listen to it. But if you have one, let me know. I have Mallory put up a link for it on from8arbitration.com. And that way, the more education, the better. We cannot be educated enough. And I know that's one of James Henry's biggest things when he takes over is day one, education. We're going to educate the nation. Every single city letter carrier and every shop steward, every Formal A rep, every DRT and advocate will have the best training available. And that's a promise he's made to me, and that's a promise I'm going to make to y'all, is that the education will be unparalleled. It'll be unequaled, okay? And so I look forward to that. But podcasts, get on there and listen to them while you're out on your route, whatever. Take good notes, and we'll educate people, all right? Make sure you're getting on Reddit and Discord. A lot of great education on there. There's also some very funny things that go on in there, some great conversations happening on there. Reddit and Discord. LMOUs. If you have an LMOU, please send it to Mallory. If you get on from 8arbitration.com, you'll find Mallory's email on there. Email your LMOUs to Mallory. She's got a database on from 8arbitration.com with people's LMOUs. We've got a bunch. They're starting to trickle off a little bit. But get on there. Send her your LMOUs because I think that's very beneficial, especially to new branch presidents, that you're getting into this LMOU, local negotiation period right here. They can look over the different line items, see things that they may want to adopt as their own. Some very good ideas out there in different LMOUs across the country. And so get on there, send her your LMOU if you haven't already, and we'll get a great database of LMOUs that people can get in there, look at them, and try to adopt different ideas. I think that's a fantastic, fantastic idea. Another thing, and I've talked about this a little bit, is John Murphy has done 6-day count training on YouTube. And I want y'all to get on there and listen to John Murphy. 6-day counts are rampant right now. And I think that that's one of the best things that we can do as people that's been through them, that know a little bit about them, is help educate y'all on them. That's the reason I keep doing this 6-day count booklet. After that, I'm going to do some more 6-day count stuff. But it's called Beginner's Guide, Protect Your City Carrier Route. Beginner's Guide, Protect Your City Carrier Route. And that's John Murphy. All right, does a very good job. He has 4 episodes, and he thinks he's going to do a couple more. So get on there. It's YouTube. Beginner's Guide, Protect Your City Carrier Route. All right. Got a shout out. Somebody wanted me to do a shout out. I'm going to do that. It says, hey, Corey, I'm a little late to the shout outs, but can you give my guy Chris, the big dog Gustafson, out of 4016 Region 3, always here for the Carriers? So absolutely. I'll give my man a shout out right there. It's Chris, the big dog Gustafson, out of 4016 Region 3. So there's your shout out, my man. I appreciate the work you do for the City Letter Carriers. I always appreciate my stewards, man, that kick ass for their people. We've got a lot that do. We've got a lot that don't, and we'll correct that. We'll remedy all of that. Okay, I'll promise you, when the CLC takes over, we're going to take care of a lot of these issues. Now, about the CLC. Sunday, there's a Get Out the Vote Zoom, a Vote No Zoom, whatever you want to say, on the tentative agreement. All right, and that's going to be Sunday the 24th, 1 p.m. Pacific time, 3 p.m. Central time, 4 p.m. Eastern time. It's going to be discussing why we believe the tentative agreement does not meet the needs of city letter carriers and the steps we can take together. It's going to be James Henry's going to be speaking. Some surprise speakers. Some surprise speakers will be on there. I'll be speaking as well. But that's Sunday, the 24th. Now, if you go to concernedlettercarriers.com, it'll have on there where you can register for that. All right? And we've got a lot of people that have registered already. But go to concernedlettercarriers.com, and it'll have on there where you can register. I put it up on both my Facebook pages, Reddit and Discord. It's got that QR code on there where you can get on there and register. All right, so do that. The more the merrier for Sunday. Have that Zoom, kind of talk about the tentative agreement, why we do not support it. Y'all know why I don't support it. If y'all listened to me last week, I told you why I didn't support it, and I still don't support it, and I won't support it, and I'm going to vote no on it. All right, so a lot of talk on social media about the tentative agreement, and it gets sideways sometimes. Some people are definitely for it. They're going to support it, whatever it says. If it would have said 0.5%, they're going to support it. A lot of people are not going to support it. It'll be a very interesting vote. I think that the fear-mongering is ridiculous. What I don't like is that I have a president that gets out there and he sends out this email, hey, this is not a debate for or against. We're not going to do that. We're going to educate the members and let them decide. That was his position. Then you hear that he gets on these WebExes and Zoom meetings and he continues to tell people why they shouldn't vote for it. Why they should vote for it. Because the financial situation of the Postal Service. We just can't overcome that. And then you get this Barner. He goes on this, and somebody videoed him talking. Same thing, same fear-mongering. Just don't feel like we do any better going to arbitration, the financial situation of the Postal Service. And so don't tell us that you're not going to say one way or the other, that you're just going to educate, and then get on there and fear-monger talking about we just don't think we can overcome the financial situation of the Postal Service. Let me tell you something. Every contract, we're going to have to deal with the financial situation of the Postal Service. Do you know why? Because they're always going to be losing money, as they say, even though they lose nothing. How do you lose money? We're not given any money. We make money. We're a service that makes money off of stamp sales. But we don't have, like the military, they don't give us money, right? So we start out, we make money, and then at the end of it, we spend more than we make. So that's an internal issue there, right? That has nothing to do with city letter carriers. That's an internal issue. Y'all got some problems there y'all need to fix. If you continue to say that our losses are in the billions, well, how are we losing billions? We make what we make. Y'all are spending too much. And so that's what we need to get into. It's also funny. I say that you can't consider the financial situation of the Postal Service. Some people say they can, some people can. They say, now look, arbitrators can do whatever in the hell they want to. They can do whatever they want to. Our position is you can't consider the financial situation of the Postal Service. And that's my position, and I'll support that in just a second. But you have people that say we need to resolve this because, or vote yes on this because of the financial situation of the Postal Service. Now, if you're going to say that, and somebody said this the other day, if you're going to say that you can't consider the financial situation of the Postal Service, why do we want to get in the books? Why would we entertain getting in the books? Because then we would be entertaining the financial situation of the Postal Service. Because I keep saying I want to get in them books. I want to get in those books. So somebody's, I guess, trying to counter that by saying, well, why do you keep saying we'll get in those books if you're saying they can't consider the financial situation of the Postal Service? As an advocate, most of your case that you're dealing with when you get a case file, most of the time what you're doing is the case is the case, right? The case file is the case file. A lot of time you're spent on what's not in the case file. Arguments that can be made by management that are not in the case file. Why? Because sometimes arbitrators will allow those in, just like the financial situation of the Postal Service. Sometimes arbitrators will let those in even though they're new argument. So a lot of the time advocates spend on case files, it's what's not in it. And what could hurt me if management attempts to entertain that or introduce that in arbitration? Any good advocate knows that. I'll give you a perfect example. I had a joint statement case in Jackson, Mississippi, the one where I played the audio where the manager threatened to shoot and kill a city letter carrier. So leading up to that, you get the case file, you're looking at it, you say, this is the case file. I'm ready for this case file. I've got it memorized, however much it is, how many pages it is. I've got this case file memorized. What's not in it? What are arguments management can make that they didn't make in this case file? As an advocate, you know what I'm talking about. Well, they're going to come in here and they're going to say, probably off of experience, that the arbitrator can't hear this case because they've already disciplined this manager. They removed him, even though they reduced it to a letter of warning. They've already disciplined. They've already done what the city letter carriers, what the union has asked them to do. They've removed this guy. That's what the union wanted. That's what we did. This is double jeopardy. This is in essence res judicata, a matter already settled, a ship that's already sailed. They're going to attempt to take a second bite at this same apple in this arbitration because we've already done what they've asked us to do. So that's not in the file. So what I do is I get some cases out, some arbitration sites that address that. And sure enough, get in there, the very first thing they say is, Mr. Arbitrator, we have a threshold issue. We have an arbitrability issue. This is res judicata. It's double jeopardy. It's a matter already settled, a ship that's already sailed, a second bite at the same apple. That's what the union's attempting to do here because on page so-and-so of the case files, the remedy, they asked that this supervisor manager be removed from supervising city letter carriers. That's exactly what we did. We removed him. Now, later on, he did get his position back through this district manager saying that she's going to reduce that to a letter of warning, but we did do what they said to do. I said, Mr. Arbitrator, thank God I brought these sites just by happenstance. I brought these sites that addresses this very issue. We've dealt with this before in Cleveland, Mississippi. They did the same thing. Here's another case where they did it. And Arbitrator Wolitz said that you're going to hear the merits. So I handed those in and he agreed with the union. So part of the case file, when you're dealing with a case in arbitration, a lot of time spent is what arguments were not made And what happens if an arbitrator lets those arguments in? That's the same thing we're talking about with the financial situation of the Postal Service. If the arbitrator says, I'm not going to take that into consideration, like the APW one in 2016, and I'll read that in just a second. If that arbitrator says, I will not consider the financial situation of the Postal Service because I'm not required to do so, and I'll read you that in just a second. So what do you have besides y'all are losing all this money? And then they're going to have to put their case on. What if the arbitrator says, I will consider the financial situation of the Postal Service, which he can do. He can do that, even if we put on such a great case and you can't. If he says, I will take into consideration the financial situation of the Postal Service, then you have those books, see? Then you've done that homework. Then you've gotten somebody, a statistician, or whoever looks at that shit that can go through there and say, this is why we've lost all these billions. None of these things relate to the city letter carrier. This is all mismanagement. So it's to their own demise that they've lost this money, which should have no bearing on what the city letter carrier makes. It's all because they don't know how to manage. That's why I want the books. So if you're saying, well, why would you want the books if they can't take into consideration? As an advocate, you know better. You have to make all the arguments. You have to be ready for every argument. And that's the reason I said when I left that room, I'd say, hand me them books. Give them to me. I'm going to go in there and I'm going to put a case on and I'm going to say that you cannot consider the financial situation of the Postal Service. Why? Because it has nothing to do with the city letter carrier. We come to work and work. Y'all make money. Y'all are the ones who spend it. That's not on us. Pay us what we're worth. And we'll talk about that in just a second. If he says, I will take into consideration, say, you got it. Let's get in these books. Here's what we found. So that's the reason I say that. When you're looking at social media and you look at certain people that they're obviously fear-mongering, they're terrified. And then you have some that are just puppets for Renfro, that whatever he says, they're going to say. They're just parrots, right? Those individuals have become content to stand in a soup line and heckle those of us that are fighting for steak, right? When you look at those people on social media, those are people that they've relegated themselves and are completely comfortable standing in a soup line, heckling those of us that are fighting for steak. I will always fight for steak because I think I'm worth eating steak rather than eating free soup. Eating soup in a soup line, there's no fight required. It's free. They will always give you soup as long as you don't fight for steak. That's what the union and the Postal Service have both done. They've relegated us to the soup line and told us to enjoy this free soup. There's no fight required, just like this TA. There's no fight required. Just give us our 1.3, give us this little bit of money we're going to get on back pay, and then we'll just carry on. We will stand in the soup line and be content to do so. And then you have this other faction, the CLC and others, that say, we will fight for steak. We're not going to stand in a soup line, even though it's free, even though there's no fight involved, even though it's probably a lot less drama involved. We will take this TA and stand in a soup line. That's not how we're going to do it. We're going to fight for steak, right? And that's the whole thing about all of it is, what do you want to do? Do you want to stand in the soup line and eat soup because it's free, there's no fight? Or do you want to stand up and say, I'm going to eat steak? That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to fight for steak. Because if I lose, I'll be eating soup with those in the soup line. I've not lost anything, really. There's a big difference between fear and cowardice. And that's what we're seeing a lot of when you're talking about this TA, is a difference between fear and cowardice. A lot of people fear the unknown as far as arbitration. That's always a fear. Arbitration is an unknown. There's a big difference between that and cowardice. Cowardice you're seeing a lot right now on social media, a lot of cowards coming out. That's not fear. You can work with somebody. You can work them out of their fear. You cannot work somebody out of cowardice, right? I'll give you a good example. When I went to the jail, when I worked there, not when I went there, but when I worked at the jail, I went in as a 20-year-old and I weighed about 170 pounds soaking wet, right? I've gotten in a few scraps in the neighborhood, a handful, okay? Felt like I was pretty adept at that until I went to work at the jail. That's a whole different beast, right? So I go in there, my very first day at the Justice Center, the Criminal Justice Center, the CJC, my very first day, and I work nights. It was a Friday night. Now, Sunday through Thursday, the inmates were put up when we got there. And we had to go around, count the cells. There was 12 cells on each side, so that's 24. There's 2 men per cells, so there's 48 inmates per cell block. And there was 4 cell blocks. So you had 12 cells on each side. So you'd go around and you'd count, make sure all the inmates were there and nobody had escaped. On Friday and Saturday, it was different. When we got there, the inmates were out. They were allowed to stay out till 2 in the morning. The TVs were on. They could play cards, checkers, chess. Believe it or not, a lot played chess, was very good at it. So my very first night there was a Friday night. The inmates were out. The TVs were on. And so I'm new to all of this. You know, you're dealing with the worst of the worst in Nashville or in these cell blocks, right? So I'm sitting in, they have a control room. There's 3 guards per floor. 1 guard sits in the control room and 3 guards walk the halls. They do all the work, feed, chow, all that stuff. So there's 4 of us on the floor, 3 of us that are working the floor. I'm one of the ones working the floor, 170 pounds soaking wet. And so the supervisor, his name is Don Black, large individual. He comes up, gets off the elevator, comes in the control room, talks to me a little bit. It's my first night. And so I'll never forget, he says, "What is all of that noise?" And it was a cell. I remember it like it was yesterday. And it is loud. And so they could be out there talking stuff, but they hated them to be too loud. He's like, "What cell is that?" And so one of the officers says, "I think that's a cell." He said, "Walton, go down there and tell them to shut the hell up or you're going to turn that TV off on them." And I'm looking at him like, "You want me to go by myself?" That was fear. It's because I never experienced anything like that. I'm fixing to go down here and tell 48 inmates to shut up or I'm going to turn the TV off on them. And so I'm looking at him and he's like, "What is it?" I said, "You want me to go down there and tell them to be quiet?" He said, "Go down there and tell them to shut the hell up or we're going to turn the TV off." And so I'm like, I'm to myself, I'm like, "He want me to go by myself?" And so the other guard's just sitting there. So I walked down there and I know my legs were trembling. And so I probably sound like that attorney I told y'all about on My Cousin Vinny. Because I go down there, there's 2 gates. There's a door that opens up and then there's a gate inside where you could go in and say something. So hell, the gate was shut. I said, hell, they can't get me now. So I just go in there and said, hey, y'all need to keep it quiet or we're going to turn this TV off. And so I know they're looking at me like, who's this cracker coming down here, 170 pounds, 20 years old, going to tell us to shut up or you're going to turn the TV off? So I turned around as quick as I could and left, And so that was fear. Cowardice would have been saying, I'm not going to go do that. That's cowardice. Hey, Corey, go down there to A-Cell and tell them to be quiet. I'm not doing that. That's cowardice. You can overcome fear. You can't overcome cowardice. The problem we have right now with the NELC is that we're overrun with cowardice, starting from our president and executive vice president. It's trickled down into a lot of stewards and a lot of branch presidents, a lot of carriers. They have a lot of cowardice about them. That's one of the things when the CLC takes over is we're going to get rid of that cowardice. We're going to get rid of it at every level. It'll be getting rid of. If it's fear, we can work with that. I can work with fear. I can get you out of that. And we will do that as well when we take over. I promise you. That's a promise from me to you, is we will get rid of the fear if that's what you have. That same night, I'm sitting in the control room, and one of the guards was named Larry Pearson, and we called him Big P. And he was a professional bodybuilder, huge black guy. He's about 6'3". When he was training, was about 270. When he wasn't and bulking up, he was about 310. A massive individual. And when he was about 275, 270, huge, because he was ripped. We're walking down the hall, and he said, "Hey," he said, "man, that gets you right there." He could see it. I know he could see it in my face. I was like, "Hey, man, I'm from Bellevue, west side of Nashville. My first night, I have no idea what's going on." And he said, "Yeah, I could see it." He said, "You did good, man." He said, "Here's what we're going to do. Every night from here on out, I'm going to go down there with you to the gymnasium." The gym was empty, but they had a lot of free weights. He said, for 30 minutes, we got 30 minutes a night to do whatever we wanted, eat, go do rec, whatever. For 30 minutes a night, he said, we're going to go down there. He said, we're going to lift, me and you. I said, seriously? Because I was weak as hell. I'd gotten in a lot of fights, but I was weak, terribly weak, weight-wise. You know what I'm talking about? There's a difference between lifting weights and whatever else. I mean, there's a different kind of strength. So every night he did, from then on until the day I left 6 years later. Every day he would take me down there and we would work out religiously for 30 minutes. That's all we had, for 30 minutes. And when I left there, I weighed 210. So that's 40 pounds I put on, and just by working out with him. And I weighed 210. I was maxing 400 when I left the jail. That gave me confidence on the floor. By the time I left there, I was running the third floor. That's the floor that I was on at the time, was the third floor. When I left the jail, I was the lead officer on the third floor. That's how you deal with fear. I was in fear that first night. There's no doubt about it. I was scared to death to walk down there, even though there was a gate, and say, hey, y'all shut up. We're going to turn the TV off. And got out of there as quick as I could to running the third floor. That's because an individual got me. He could see that I had fear. And he said, hey, I'm going to work with you. I'm going to work with you. Not only are you going to get rid of this fear, but you're going to end up running this floor before you leave, which was the most violent floor. The third floor was the most violent floor at the Justice Center. So we can work with fear. I do it all the time. We go in places where carriers have fear, and we send teams in to help them deal with that fear. That's what we're going to do with the CLC. We're going to have teams go in that deal with fear, those that are afraid. We can work with that. We can work with that. Cowardice, you can't get it out of somebody. So when you look on social media and you see people that are, man, I don't know about going in front of an arbitrator. I just don't know. Some of those are just dealing with fear of the unknown. And you educate them. This Zoom meeting is a perfect example of what you're going to do. You're going to educate people to help them overcome those fears of the unknown, arbitration. I've got money sitting on the table, right? I can pick it up. It's like that, what was that $1 Million show? You got this right here. You can take it, or you can go to this next question. It's the unknown. That's what you're going to have to deal with. But cowardice, whole different beast. You can't get rid of cowardice. You just have to get them out of here, right? Whatever position they're in, if they're a shop steward, you got to get them out of being a shop steward. Cowardice will eat their ass up. And there's indifference. There are people that it's just indifference. I'll give you an example. And this is something I saw today, and this is the worst kind of union person that you have, is this one right here. And I'll read this to you. Somebody put up something about management harassing. The union didn't do a good enough job. Talking about Renfro didn't do enough job addressing harassment in the TA, and I agree with that 100%. One of the biggest things we deal with is harassment, and that's what I said when the CLC takes over. That's the first thing that's going to be on the agenda, is addressing that nationally, the harassment of the city letter carriers. When you talk about the vital few, management always talks about us, the vital few. Vital few on attendance, vital few in stationary events, vital few on not making an hour office time, the vital few. We're going to have the vital few managers and supervisors that are causing a hostile working environment. We're going to get a list of those individuals, and we're going to go after them. They're going to be our vital few, those that have chosen to make my carriers' lives a living hell. They're going to be the vital few, but that's for another day. But anyway, here's what somebody says. I find that by showing up to work when I'm scheduled and doing the job the way I'm supposed to be doing it, I can say that I don't get harassed at work by anyone. And he's got a little emoji there with a guy with a little finger to his chin. I'm going to read that again. Somebody came forward talking about the harassment of carriers wasn't addressed. Okay? And here's what this guy says. I find that by showing up to work when I'm scheduled and doing the job the way I'm supposed to be doing it, I can say that I don't get harassed at work by anyone. I'll make a promise to y'all right now. Right now. I will never be that guy. Ever. I can make a promise to you right now. The CLC will never be that. They will never say, so, hey, you're getting harassed. Why don't you do this? Why don't you show up to work and do your job? That's as management a response as I've ever seen. So anybody who's getting harassed, it's only because you're not showing up for work and you're not doing your job. That's the union people we have out there right now. That's indifference. That is the exact opposite how a union person's supposed to be. I'll tell you this, if that's the mindset that we should have, I shouldn't even be doing this podcast. Why? My station, management asks me before they do anything. Postmasters call me and ask if they can send a manager out there if the carriers are going to be okay with it. That's how I have it at my station. And if you don't believe me, get on Facebook and ask if anybody's been a carrier when I've been a shop steward. Management asks me before they do anything on that floor. That's how I've got it. Right? So if anybody should have that mindset, it should be me. Hey, I got it made. Management comes to me. The postmasters call me and say, hey, I'm going to send this person out there where the carriers have a problem with it. That's how we've got it. So if anybody should have that mindset, it should be me. But that's not what the union is. That's not who the union's supposed to be. An injury to one is an injury to all. That's what it's supposed to be, right? An injury to one is an injury to all. So when you have somebody get on there and say, I find that by showing up to work when I'm scheduled and doing the job the way I'm supposed to be doing it, I can say that I don't get harassed at work by anyone. That's not a union person right there. That's a person that's in it for themselves. That's the exact opposite of what the union stands for. I'm going to read some things to you that somebody sent me that goes along with that. Okay? This is the street inactivity deep dive. Okay? Street inactivity deep dive. And this is what management is doing. They're going to have these street inactivity reports, stationary time reports, and they're going to go out on the street, confront you, and then come back and report back what their findings are. Here's a couple of them. Findings. I went to this street to meet with this city carrier on Carrier Route 18. When I arrived, she was walking up Milton Street. I approached her as she made it to the ProMaster. I began asking her questions about her street inactivity, and she seemed a little disoriented. She started talking about her vision kept going black. She was lightheaded, and her head was hurting her. She then began vomiting. I called this person to let him know. He then sent an email to this person and this other person. This person called me and advised me to take her to the store, get her inside to cool off. The park location of the ProMaster was in direct sunlight, so it's the carrier's fault. The ProMaster was in direct sunlight. Abatement, I got her to the store. She went to the restroom and then to sit down. I picked up some Gatorade and water with electrolytes for her. We sat in the store for several minutes. Once she started to feel better, I then advised her of how many breaks she is allowed to take in one day. She did go back to her route and finished it with some assistance. Now, tell me again, you son of a bitch, about how you're not bothered by anybody because you do your job with your little finger on your chin. That's the problem with the union today. That's cowardice 101 right there. Well, I find if you come to work every day and you do your job the way you're supposed to, you don't get harassed. How foolish you sound. I'm going to read this again because this pissed me off. First off, there should have been a grievance filed on that. Article 14, you're supposed to take them to the emergency room. If they're vomiting, they're past the point of no return if they're vomiting. So there's all kind of problems here, but it says, I won't read the first part. She talked about her vision kept going black. She was lightheaded and her head was hurting. She then began vomiting. She's past the point of no return. I called this person to let him know. He then sent an email to this person and this person. This person called me and advised me to take her to the emergency room? No. To the store. Get her inside to cool off. The park location of the ProMaster was in direct sunlight, so it's the carrier's fault because the ProMaster was in direct sunlight even though she was walking. Abatement. I got her to the store, not the emergency room. She went to the restroom and then to sit down. I picked up some Gatorade and water with electrolytes for her. We sat in the store for several minutes. Once she started to feel better, I then advised her of how many breaks she is allowed to take in one day. Can you imagine the fucking gall of that shit right there? I told myself, I swear to God, when I started this, I said I cussed so much last week, I wasn't going to say any cuss words for the next 3 weeks. I said enough of them last week. Then you see this right here. On one of our sisters out there on the street. Now, here's my problem. Here's my problem. People say that I'm a bully because of things I say. I don't give two rats' asses what you think about me. Honest to God. I have one passion and one passion only, and that's the city letter carrier. And if I call people out of their name, so fucking be it. And if I cuss a lot, so fucking be it. I have passion for the city letter carrier. Unlike anything else. I have a deep love affair with a city letter carrier. Why? Because I've been one for 32 years and I have met and dealt with a lot of individuals. I have that passionate love affair for the city letter carrier. And if that comes across as me being a bully, so fucking be it. And if stuff like this gets me riled up, so fucking be it. But I'm going to read that abatement to you one more time for the son of a bitch who said, if you just come to work every day and you do your job, I realize that you're not harassed. How fucking foolish that sounds in the first place. How anti-union that is in the first place. How pro-management that is in the first place. To imply that the only people that get harassed are those that don't come to work and don't do their job. That's how fucking stupid that is. Here's the abatement on one of our sisters that is vomiting, getting dizzy. Right? They should have immediately taken her to the emergency room. Here's the abatement one more time. Then I've got a couple more I'm going to read, but this is the worst one. I got her to the store. She went to the restroom and then to sit down. I picked up some Gatorade and water with electrolytes for her. We sat in the store for several minutes. Once she started to feel better, I then advised her on how many breaks she is allowed to take in one day. Here's somebody who is overcome by the heat. Instead of saying, hey, look, you need to take breaks as needed in this heat, you need to understand you're in the danger zone right now. You need to take as many breaks as needed in this heat. Get yourself in a cool spot. Instead of saying that, she says, I then advised her of how many breaks she is allowed to take in one day. She did go back to her route and finished it with some assistance. They almost killed that girl. again, via Mr. Gates, right? I told her, you can only take so many breaks. Now get back out there. I know you've been vomiting. Get back out there and we'll send you some assistance. That's how they feel about you. That's how management feels about you. That's why I say when the CLC takes over, we will go on the attack day one. We're going on the offensive. I've already been told that. We're going to be cut loose on this nation, on these managers that do that. Something like that comes to us, that person will be targeted. We will make sure of it. They will suffer us when we take over. Management in this country will suffer us. I will make sure of it. And I know exactly what to do. I've dealt with it numerous times. I know exactly how to get them. And we will. I'm telling you, when the CLC, that stuff right there makes me so fucking mad. Okay, here's some more. Findings. Went and met the carrier at this address. I asked him about exceeding his break time by 4 minutes. In addition to the 29 minutes of inactivity, he said, I'm tired of seeing you. To which I responded with, well, if you were not doing things you aren't supposed to do, you wouldn't be seeing me this much. Now, how do they know he's doing something they're not supposed to be doing? That's the implication, right? That's the reason we've allowed that when you talk about these stationary events, when our president says it's an inconvenience, that's the reason these things are happening, is because we didn't address it when it first came out. This inconvenience has almost led to one of us getting killed. And now this clown coming out there saying, well, if you weren't doing things you aren't supposed to do. How do you know he's doing things he's not supposed to do? You're reading something off of a computer screen. We should have dealt with that a long time ago, and that's one of the great things that I remember when Mr. Henry was talking about. We're going to go after those stationary events. We're going to go after these things right here. Win or lose, we're going after them. What are you going to lose? They're already doing it. What are we losing? Nothing. They're already doing it. So let's attack it. You got to attack things. These aren't inconveniences just because you wanted to make sure that these memos had where they could track us. That's the reason it's inconvenience, is because he don't want you to address it. Just like that grievance I had when the little son of a bitch wouldn't call me to be a witness, and they withdrew it. They would rather us be inconvenienced by being bullied and harassed and intimidated. They'd rather that inconvenience happen so he can get his name on a memo saying that they can watch us with these scanners, and that's all that is. But this person said, well, if we're not doing things you aren't supposed to do, you wouldn't be seeing me this much. To me, that's a grievance. That's a grievance. You don't know what in the fuck I'm doing. And you're going to come out there and question me. First off, you always say steward. Don't ever answer questions on your route. When I went out there and met him, I asked him about these things here. I need my shop steward. Need my shop steward. I'm not answering a question without my shop steward present. Why were you 4 minutes? Shop steward. What about this 29 minutes of inactivity? Shop steward. You need to answer me. Shop steward. You fail in a direct order? Shop steward. I'm not saying anything but shop steward. That's it. Abatement. I explained to this individual he was required to keep track of his time. No, I'm not. Where in the fuck does it say I'm required to keep track of my time? That's what they said. I explained to this individual that he is required to keep track of his time. Bullshit. Show me that. Show me that. In any handbook or manual, I'm required to keep track of my time. Bullshit. I also told him that the next time he exceeds his break time and or has another inactivity, there will be an II conducted. My gosh, the inconvenience of that. Just the complete inconvenience. I threaten him. Next time he exceeds his break time and there's another activity, there'll be an II. Mercy, the inconvenience of that, being threatened about something you have no idea what you're talking about because it's based off of scanner data. Mercy, the inconvenience. Here's another one. Findings. I met with a carrier on the corner of this street and this street. He had not made it to the 2200 block, yet with it being heavier volume on Monday. Abatement. I asked the carrier about his inactivity time. He stated that he meant to clock back from his break and got busy setting his truck up for his next swing and forgot. He said he will do his best to watch the time closely. I don't know why we answer questions. I don't know why we just say, I need my shop steward. I'm not going to be interrogated on the street, regardless if it's an inconvenience or not. I'm not going to be questioned. Here's another one. Findings. I met with the carrier at this street. He was getting mail ready for his next walking loop. Abatement. I asked the carrier about his inactivity time. I explained to him again that he is only permitted one 10-minute street break, being he takes one in the morning at the office. He also has 30 minutes he can take for lunch. He said, yes, ma'am. I explained to him that he has had almost an hour daily of inactivity and it needs to stop. Just more inconvenience. More inconvenience. But you got this clown saying, I know, if you come to work every day and you do what you're supposed to be doing, you won't be harassed. But that's where we are. That's where we are. As a union, you've got fear, which we can deal with. You got cowardice, which you can't deal with. And you have complacency. Those that just don't give a shit. Hey, as long as I'm good, that's all that matters to me. As long as I come to work and I'm fine, that's all that matters. You're just a city carrier. You're not a union person. Because a union person, an injury to one is an injury to all, right? Even as city letter carriers in my station, they understand that an injury to one is an injury to all. That's how city carriers should be. But let's talk about a little bit. This has gone on too long. I wasn't planning on doing one this long. I'm going to read a couple of things to you about arbitrators shouldn't be taking the financial situation of the Postal Service into account, right? Now, again, they can, but you got to be ready for everything. When somebody, and these are all things I took off online, which all these are very good. But this one is the Postal Policy and Definitions. It's U.S. Government Information, Postal Policy 101A. The United States Postal Service shall be operated as a basic and fundamental service. Now, let me stop right there. When we're talking about, and a lot of people are scared, and there's a lot of fear-mongering going on about the new administration, the privatization and everything, doing away with collective bargaining, doing away with all these things. Understand that we receive no tax money. We're not a burden to the taxpayer, right? We're a free service. Now, you got to pay for stamps and whatever, but you don't have to pay for your mailbox. You don't have to pay for us coming up and delivering your mail every day. That's a free service that we provide. That's the federal government. We provide that free service. Now, if you go in and you want to send a letter, you got to pay for postage. If you want to go in and deliver, pay for a package to be delivered, you have to pay for that postage. Or an express mail, you have to pay for that postage. But you do not have to pay for me coming to your door every day. There is no tax on that. It's completely free. We are not a burden to the taxpayer whatsoever. Even when all these places are being bailed out in COVID, what did we get? We got a loan. We didn't get bailed out. We got a loan that we had to pay back, right? Everybody else is getting bailed out. We got a loan. So we are a service. We're not a business. That's critical when you're talking about fear-mongering, okay, about the new administration. We receive no tax money. We're completely free. We're a free service to you. You have a mailbox, we're going to bring mail to it every single day for free. That's just the way it is. But that's what it says. The United States Postal Service shall be operated as a basic and fundamental service provided to the people by the government of the United States. Right? It's provided to the people. This free service is provided to the people by the government of the United States, authorized by the Constitution, created by act of Congress, and supported by the people. The Postal Service shall have as its basic function the obligation to provide postal services to bind the nation together through the personnel, educational, literary, and business correspondence of the people. It shall provide prompt, reliable, and efficient services to patrons in all areas and shall render postal services to all communities. The cost of establishing and maintaining the postal service shall not be apportioned to impair the overall value of such service to the people. So what does that tell you? That we are a free service provided to the people by the government. Okay? That's critical. A lot of fear-mongering going on. We're a free service provided by the government to the people for the people. We receive no tax money to do it. You don't have to pay to do it. Here's C. Here's the thing that everybody's been talking about. As an employer, the Postal Service shall achieve and maintain compensation for its officers and employees, which is you, comparable to the rates and types of compensation paid in the private sector of the economy of the United States. It shall place particular emphasis upon opportunities for career advancements of all officers and employees, that's you, and the achievement of worthwhile and satisfying careers in the service of the United States. Now, it does not say unless. It does not say unless. There's no caveat. It doesn't say unless you're losing billions. And that's where we get that it says what it says. When you go to arbitration, it says what it says. You cannot read into it. You cannot put anything into it. It says what it says. It's a mandate. We'll be paid comparable to other people just like us. It doesn't say unless. Right? So that's what a lot of people are talking about. You cannot take the financial situation of the Postal Service into account. Because if it was to say that, then we'd be on shaky ground. But it doesn't. Here's what the Postal Service puts out. And this is another thing that people are putting up. Now, this is the 2024 report. This is what they came out. A lot of people are putting this up. And it had this certain section highlighted. And this is what people are putting up on social media. It says, our ability to negotiate contracts that control labor costs is essential to achieving financial stability. We have no assurance that we will be able to negotiate contracts in the future with our unions that will result in a cost structure that is sustainable within current and projected future revenue levels. And here we go. In addition, if our future negotiations should fail and the involved parties proceed to arbitration, the risk of an adverse outcome exists, as there is no current statutory mandate requiring an interest arbitrator to consider our financial health in issuing an award. So the Postal Service understands that there's nothing that will keep an arbitrator from saying, I'm not going to take your financial situation into consideration. They would have to sell an arbitrator on that, and then that's where we come in and we say, hey, look here. Here's the sites we have for that where different interest arbitrators have agreed with us. Here's the law that was put into effect, but it doesn't have a caveat. It doesn't say unless, right? But I'll read that again. In addition, if our future negotiations should fail and the involved parties proceed to arbitration, the risk of an adverse outcome exists, as there is no current statutory mandate requiring an interest arbitrator to consider our financial health in issuing an award. So the Postal Service agrees with us, what we're saying here on the floor. Here's an arbitrator's decision. This is one out of 2016. This is for the APW. Now, some fools said, well, that's not us. These are used as persuasive value. We'll say, hey, the APW went in front of their arbitrator. They're making $7 more in entry level than we are, which is completely unacceptable. They're making more money than we are. That's completely unacceptable. Here's what this arbitrator says. Stephen Goldberg, the neutral chair. As for the evidence and argument put forth by the parties with respect to the Postal Service's financial condition and the effect that should have on the award, I shall be brief. This issue was discussed and resolved in this panel's 2016 award and need not be discussed again. For the reasons stated in the 2016 award, I do not view the Postal Service's financial condition as calling for a modification or rejection of the statutory comparability standard, which means what? I will not take your finances into consideration. I will not take your financial situation into consideration. That's what he said. So you have the Postal Service saying they don't have to take our financial situation into consideration. Here's an arbitrator saying, I will not take your financial situation into consideration. You have the law, which has no caveat. It doesn't say unless you're losing billions. It says what it says. Do you know the only person that's talking about the Postal Service's losses? Your president. Your president. He's the only one talking about the financial situation of the Postal Service, as well as his executive vice president. Now he's out there parroting that same shit. What are we so cowardly about? That's not fear. That's cowardice. That's not fear-mongering. That's cowardice, right? That's just straight up cowardice. The Postal Service is telling their people they don't have to take it into consideration. This arbitrator in the APW, I will not take it into consideration. The law I just read has no caveat that says unless. The only person saying they're scared of the financial situation of the Postal Service is your president, getting on different podcasts like Valley Labor Report. Well, they're losing billions. They're broke. And so I took it into consideration myself. I took that into consideration. And I felt like the best we could do. We squeezed everything that we could squeeze out of them. I couldn't even get my CCAs up to entry level as a PTF on the clerk side. I couldn't even get them that, which is complete asinine to me. But in this report that the Postal Service put out, that same report, do you know the one thing they didn't address? They talked about all these labor costs and all about these things about our contract and all these COLAs and all this shit here. You know the one thing they didn't address is their non-compliance. They didn't address one time, hey, y'all need to get your shit together. We're losing too much money in non-compliance. They never addressed that. They didn't say, hey, our financial situation is so bad. And part of it is because you're not educating yourself on compliance with signed grievance settlements. That would save us hundreds of millions of dollars. If y'all would just comply. They didn't address that. Why? Why didn't they address non-compliance? Why did we refuse to address non-compliance in this TA? Why did our own union refuse to address non-compliance? What's going on here, really? What's going on with that non-compliance stuff? You got hundreds of millions of dollars being wasted on non-compliance. The Postal Service doesn't even address it in their little whatever that was, that report. The union doesn't even address it in the TA. You got Barner going out telling people no more cease and desist because it's hurting the Postal Service. What's happening right now with our union? Can anybody tell me? Because I don't know. I don't know. I have no idea. Isn't that bizarre? That the Postal Service they're kind of lecturing them on the labor costs, but they don't say the first damn thing about y'all need to start complying with contract, with signed grievance settlements, or else we're going to get in y'all's ass. Y'all going to lose your job. Y'all not going to be supervising any longer because you're costing us too much money. Not one individual has lost their position due to non-compliance, due to grievance payouts. You'll have managers lose hundreds of thousands of dollars on grievance payouts. They still keep their position. They're not addressing it. Why should we worry about the financial situation of the Postal Service? They're not too fucking worried about it, right? They're not worried about it because it's still going on. They didn't even address it. That's bizarre to me. Is it y'all? I don't know. Maybe I'm by myself. That was the report was the United States Postal Regulatory Commission, the Form 10K. It's the United States Postal Regulatory Commission, the Form 10K. That's what that was. I just found that. I know I got it from somewhere, but that's what that is. Never addresses noncompliance. Never addresses we might need to start abiding by the contract that we agreed to. Well, all right. There you have it. That's just a hodgepodge of stuff. None of it really had any kind of flow or anything. I was just trying to get rid of screenshots, but it really had no meaning, did it? The whole episode. But anyway, I'm not going to stand in a soup line. I'm not going to be a coward, right? We can deal with fear, but I'm not going to be cowardly ever, right? So we'll fight for steak here. That's what we're going to do. We're going to fight for steak. So remember, get on to concernlettercarriers.com. Sign up for the Zoom meeting, right? Get on there this Sunday. We're going to have some good speakers. Think you all enjoy it. I really do. You're going to have some surprise speakers. I think you'll enjoy that as well. Tomorrow I'm going to come in. I'm going to read for 1 hour on the 6-day count. And I'm going to keep doing that. And then when I finish with that, we're going to keep doing 6-day count stuff until we get it down pat, until we beat them out of that, okay, and make them stop. So there you have it. Just a kind of a salted peanuts type thing, I guess. It's just, but hey, listen to me. I will be a bully for y'all every day. I will be a bully for the city letter carrier every day, right? If somebody hurts the city letter carrier, they are my enemy. And my president and my executive vice president, to me, have hurt the city letter carrier with the things that they have done, so they are my enemy. Okay? Until the CLC can get in there, and we will make immediate, drastic changes. I promise you that. They will be immediate and drastic. And we're going to go on the offensive. The city letter carrier is going to come roaring back with this new administration, I promise you. But I will continue to be a bully on here for my city letter carriers. I love you more than life itself, and I'll fight like hell for you. I will never tell you. I will never say, I got it made where I'm at, man. Good luck to y'all. It's not who I am. It's not who I am. My dad would kick my ass today if he ever heard any cowardly shit like that coming out of my mouth, and he's 87. He would still put a foot in my ass. That Marine would come out in him in a hurry if he ever heard me say some cowardly shit like that, because that's not how he raised me. My mother either. She's meaner than my dad. So anyway, I love y'all very much. I'll talk to y'all tomorrow. We'll get back into some 6-day count, all right?